This conference will now be recorded. This conference will now be recorded.
Welcome to the next installment of Planning Across the Spectrum's videos geared towards helping families who have children with intellectual and/or developmental disabilities make a smooth transition into adulthood. Today, we want to talk about working. The title itself could use some work. Wasn't sure the best title to use. The objective is to give you a case, a real life case scenario, using a real company of what it could look like if your son or daughter found a job. Now, I understand today, April 22nd, in the middle of the COVID crisis, where many of us may be out of work ourselves. Many employers their doors are shut down. They're not hiring, or if they are hiring, it's jobs that your son or daughter may not be able to do, or you don't want to have them apply for because of the risk of exposure to COVID.
This conference will now be recorded.
With that in mind, I want to encourage everyone to think about coming out of this. At some point, the economy is going to recover. I think it'll happen sooner than later. I think there's going to be a demand for people working. And I think the best way to prepare for that is not waiting for it to happen. I think taking the time that you have now to work with your son or daughter on or other loved one on their resume and interviewing skills can only help. If you're not comfortable doing interviews, or if you're not comfortable helping them build a resume, or maybe you don't have time, the advantage is, in all likelihood, somebody in your circle, either themselves or they know somebody who does have time and would be willing to help, and would be much more likely to help now than they would if they were working themselves, perhaps. So I encourage you, if you haven't already done so, to start working on a resume for your child. To me, it doesn't matter how young they are, 14, 15, or 30, 40. I think everybody can start working on a resume, and maybe this will spur you to take yours out and dust it off and clean it up, and have you looking for perhaps a better job, or a job that'll allow you the freedom to work remotely down the road. But what you want to do for you or your child or anybody else you know that's looking for a job, take into consideration what that job requires, and then think about the things that you're currently doing that can translate into that job. So one example would be problem solving. Every job that I can think of requires some degree of solving problems. Well, if you're at home, it could be difficult perhaps to think about how you're going to solve problems. But if you're a parent and you're homeschooling your child while you're working remotely and maintaining the house, think about the problems you have to solve there. You have conflict management, you have time management, you have perhaps the stores or Instacart or whatever you're using to shop. You had to substitute, and you had to think about what could a viable substitute be, or even just how are you going to accomplish your shopping since you can't go out and about. All of these could be examples of problem solving, or time management skills. You don't have to say I solved the problem of where I was going to shop. You could touch it up and use different language. Well, the same goes for your child. What do they do that are strengths, and what do they do that you think could translate into something a company would pay them for? And involve your child in this. Get them to tell you about what they do all day. Especially when they're at school, or if they're out and about, or even if it's just stuff they do around the house. So that's where I'm going to leave off and go into the example of one particular work scenario. The company I used was Starbucks because a lot of their information was open to the public. It was easy for me to find. And the benefits that I'm listing are all benefits that were on the Starbucks website for opportunities for their employees. Now, the example I'm using is an 18-year-old who lives with both parents. They're in their 60s. For purposes of this scenario, at least one of them is collecting Social Security retirement, and Jimmy is receiving disabled adult child benefit because he had been receiving SSI. So now he's receiving 50% of his parents' Social Security retirement. He has an opportunity. A local coffee shop wants to hire him as a part-time barista. He'll make $10 an hour, and he's going to work 25 hours per week. Now, in some of your states, this may be too low. We're trying to pick a national average of 51. What out of the 50 states in the District of Columbia, what do we think a good average salary would be? It's higher than the federal minimum wage. So we think it's conceivable that the majority of states will be paying about $10 an hour or more. So if he takes the job, that's what all of this is, right? So as you can see, there's a lot of benefits for him taking the job. Now, Medicare may come in before age 22. It's 24 months after he starts receiving Social Security disability. And the ABLE account contribution, we should note, you can make the ABLE account contribution in both cases, and because he's contributing to a 401k to get the 5% match, he does not qualify for the ABLE at Work program where he can put up to an additional $12,000 a year in. It's 12,000 some change, but if he did not have his 401k, so if you have a child who goes to work, doesn't get any of these benefits, but is still earning a wage, they can and should contribute to the ABLE at Work program, where the contributions they have doesn't count towards the $15,000 maximum. Now, we will be doing a separate video to do a deeper dive into ABLE. I don't want to dive into it too much here. So the key things here is, I mean, at 18 years old, he could get his own health, dental, and vision insurance. He could get a life insurance policy, and maybe that's not a concern, but if he can get one with no underwriting, why not? Health, this is a health savings account. He could get long-term disability without underwriting. So if he goes out because of illness or injury, he could earn up to 60% of his paycheck, and then he becomes eligible for stock purchase of up to 10% of his income. So if he's making $12,000 a year in salary, he could buy $1,200 in Starbucks stock every year, which is pretty cool. If he doesn't take the job, obviously he doesn't get any of those benefits. He keeps his Medicaid and he can still contribute to ABLE. Woohoo! But I mean, look at all these opportunities. Now, is this going to be every single employer out there? Absolutely not. I get that, right? As I said, this is Starbucks. I found this online for Starbucks. If you are interested in doing things and you want your child to find work, and right now their supports that they get from the Department of Rehabilitative Services or whatever vocational program they have aren't available, perhaps this is something you can help your child with is, hey, what are you interested in doing? Let's look at companies in our area that do these things and then see if we can find their benefits. If it's a publicly traded company, you can probably find benefits like this. And then start gearing the resume towards what they're going to do. And then also train them or work with your child to help them learn how to do things. For Starbucks, for example, maybe some of the jobs they're going to do are going to be sweeping floors, taking trash out, making coffee. Okay, if you're like me, you don't have the cappuccino machine or the frother, or I don't even know what they're called because I don't drink coffee like that, but I do have a coffee pot. And so you can talk them through filling the pot with water. If you can talk them through making the right amount of scoops, and so on and so on. And those skills can be translated to some degree at Starbucks. Having a job coach can help them translate those skills a little more. But my point of all this is there are things you can do while they're at home right now to help them towards this. So in summary, what are the things you have? You have income, Social Security, you have all of these things, and paying into Social Security because he's earning a paycheck, he's paying into Social Security to start getting his credits to where he may qualify for his own Social Security disability down the road. I mean, the ultimate goal is you want him to be financially independent. This does not mean you can't have a special needs trust for him. In fact, I encourage you, have him work, make the $1,800 a month, right? Have the special needs trust off to the side and fund that with life insurance. So let's say he needs $3,000 a month total to support himself when you're gone. Well, the additional $1,200 a month he needs can come out of the trust. So I mean, my point being, this doesn't have to be the end all be all. It's not to replace the trust. It's not to replace your planning. It's to give hope. Now, what happens if he loses his job and the parents die, right? Well, now it's been 20 years. He's 30 years old. He's still working part-time, earning $1,000 a month. And let's say COVID happened, right? I mean, right now we're looking at mass layoffs. So he's lost his job after working there for 20 years. Well, he can file for unemployment. Right now, because of COVID, you can get more than 26 weeks of benefit. He can apply for Social Security disability. He can keep his Medicare A and B. He could think about looking into COBRA, but if he has Medicare A and B, he may not have to. And he can apply for voc rehab. Now, because of COVID, voc rehab may not be the option. But if it's, hey, the local Starbucks goes out of business and now he has to find another job, he could apply for voc rehab. And that is a 6-month program through the Department of Rehabilitative Services to help him find another job and get work. So this is everything that he has here, right? So his current financial situation without a job. Well, one of his parents are gone now, so he's getting 75% of the Social Security benefit. So now he's getting $1,800 a month. And he's also going to get unemployment, et cetera, et cetera. He may be using a buy-in state for Medicaid. Maybe not, but maybe he is. So now his income is $1,800. It's still $1,800 a month, right? Because before he was making about $1,000 a month, maybe a little more, and now he's making $1,800 a month. Again, if he has the special needs trust and you're supplementing it, he can use that special needs trust to supplement the difference. Now, after 20 years in the workforce, he could have saved $120,000 in the able account, $26,000 in his 401k, and have $26,000 in stock for Starbucks. So he has $172,000 to his name, assuming that he put in, $500 a month into his able account, did his 5% 401k with 5% match, and purchased 10% of stock every year. And he never, ever got a pay raise for those 20 years. I know people that don't have disabilities, that don't have $172,000 to their name. So this is not a judgment because they have kids, things happen. But this is, a lot of hope for the individual with the disability. It means he can live off of his able account, taking money out of his able account instead of his special needs trust. If he takes out $1,200 a month, that would last him, it'll last him about 100 months ish, right? So you're looking at about 9 years. Again, not perfect math, but you get the idea, right? I mean, the objective is help your child find work. It doesn't matter how much or how little he or she is doing. What matters is they are working, they are earning, preferably not a sub-minimum wage. and they are doing something that they enjoy doing and gives them meaning. And I know there's going to be some parents out there that say my child could never work, and I would push back on that statement and say I'm not going to disagree that I'm not stating every child or every person with disability can absolutely go out and find meaningful employment and there are enough jobs out there for everybody. I'm not saying that at all. What I am saying is I think there are more people who are employable than we give our children credit for. And I think we could do a better job for them and for us to help them find their skills and apply those skills. Because if they are working and they are earning a wage, then we know that we may have to subsidize them for less than if they weren't working. You know, coming up with $1,200 a month for 40 years is cheaper than coming up with $3,000 a month for 40 years. So do the math, and especially consider if they're not working, it's very unlikely Social Security is going to be enough to keep them afloat after you're gone, even if they're receiving disabled adult child benefit. You're going to have to help them if you want them to have a certain lifestyle. You're going to have to help them by putting money into a special needs trust through life insurance or investments. Why not help them gain some independence and work, even if it's one day a week, and offset some of what you have to come up with? And that is why I think, and we think at planning, it's so important to help our family members and individuals who have disabilities find work. And along those lines, Planning Across the Spectrum will be launching something in the not too distant future to help families create video resumes for their children and help them find work. Now, we're not going to become a vocational job placement. We're not going to take over something that many chapters of the ARC do. And there's very, very many other providers out there who do a phenomenal job helping people find placement. Our objective is to help the individual by creating a video resume for them and coaching them on interviewing. So I hope, as always, that you found this helpful. If you have specific questions, concerns, or topics you would like me to address, please email me at eric@planningacrossthespectrum.com. As always, I do my best to keep these under 30 minutes. Again, thank you for watching.